Heads versus Feds. The Ultimate Odd Couple give their take on the news stories of the day. And lots of shootings. Shootings continue.
Lots of shootings. That's God bless America. Everybody's got a gun, and almost nobody knows how to use them. So they figure they go out and somebody pisses them off and they shoot at them.
Well, let's talk about gun control first. And then let's talk about antidepressants, because those are the two things that I'm concerned about. We have a perfect storm of guns for everybody and antidepressants for everybody. And I think they're contributing to the problem.
I know you do. I've heard you talk about that. The antidepressants certainly contribute to some of the problems. I don't think anybody can argue that. I think it is a stretch to blame antidepressants for all of the problems. And the one you specifically talked about last week, Virginia Tech, not one iota of proof that shooter ever took an antidepressant. So you got to be careful you don't overstretch the boundaries.
All right.
I think the more important issue is the one you brought up, which is the gun issue in the United States. You always bring up the issue in your debates, rightfully so, that we have the highest percentage of people in jail of any country in the world, I think that's very close to accurate. And you say it's drugs. Drugs contributes to a lot to it. The other thing that contributes to a huge amount is we have more guns per capita than by far any other country in the world. And we just have almost no controls. Look, I carry a gun, as you know. I've carried a gun my whole life. I train 4 times a year on shooting it. I know what it's like to draw down on another person. I know what it's like to make that split-second decision because I've trained on it 1,000 times, Steve. I know what you have to do. Most people have never trained like that. You're lucky if most people go out, they buy a .357. They never buy a small gun, of course. A .357 or a 9mm, and they shoot 50 rounds at a target, and they think they're ready, and they have no clue. And so what happens? They go out, and they panic. And that's what I think a lot of what we're seeing is.
Well, we need to specifically get to the root of the problem itself and how it's going to be addressed, because it seems to me that the gun show loophole is probably one of the biggest problems, and why that exists is beyond me. Why you can go to any gun show in America pretty much at any age, I think, and buy any weapon from anyone.
Let me answer that question. It's 3 letters, NRA. Next.
Right, the strongest lobby group in America.
Correct.
One of the interesting things that Ken Kesey told me was that it was absolutely futile to try and take guns away from Americans, and that was un-American. It was never going to work. And he felt that what needed to be done was they needed to put a lot more restrictions on the way bullets are manufactured. And non-lethal bullets should be the only thing people should be getting.
You tell me I'm not sure what the non-lethal bullet is.
Okay, so for instance, they can make, for target shooting, which is probably the most used thing guns are used for, right? Do they need a lead bullet to do target shooting?
No.
No. They can do it with a rubber bullet. They can do it with a paint pellet. You know what I mean?
But that rubber bullet or that paint pellet is shot close enough at a person's head to kill them.
Exactly.
So there is
I know, but you'd still be
less lethal. All right. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is make it so much more difficult to get a lethal bullet. And you're never going to get the gun out of their hands.
Control bullets, not guns.
Well, you need to control both, but I'm saying that lethal bullets needed to be treated differently than non-lethal.
Yeah, and that certainly could come about someday. Look, what many people would say, the liberal Obama administration has not tried one iota to control guns, despite the horror stories that you hear. Not one single bill has been introduced to try to control guns in the past 3 years.
And that's all the NRA.
Right.
And the muscle that they have.
That's the point. So it ain't going to happen. And look, I am pro-gun. if the person is properly trained and know what they're doing. That's my point. Most people who have guns and use them in a situation end up shooting somebody else that shouldn't be shot, or they end up getting shot themselves with their own gun. And that's lack of training. So what I would like to see done is, if we are going to be stuck with these guns, and I think we are, I think Ken Kesey was right about that, I don't think he can change the American mentality, then simply change the process of making someone to qualify. Forget this bullshit of shooting at a target.
Why can't they just have somebody at every gun show that's whose job it is every time?
Who's paying for that? You know how many gun shows there are in the United States? Right. How many booths there are in the United States?
But here's the thing. Every legitimate gun store owner has to do a criminal background check,
right?
Even at the gun show.
Yep.
It's only the individual private sales.
Steve, I completely understand. You asked me if I thought it would be changed. If the fairly liberal, and I think they're fairly liberal, Obama administration is not going to change it, nobody will. And I don't think he has any perception of changing the gun laws. I don't think he has any perception, despite the screaming you hear from the other side. There's been no indication. So now, it's hard to argue, even for the NRA, it is hard to argue against let everybody have a gun that wants one, but make them be properly trained.
I think that's a good point, but I still don't think you should be able to walk into a gun show and buy a 50 caliber machine gun capable of shooting a mile and then get armor-piercing bullets for it. And
did you hear me disagree with you? I agree with you. We are now talking about what can really happen. I don't think we're going to see a change in that.
All right, so you already talked a little bit about SSRIs. We know that they're, some of the most popular substances on earth right now. They're so heavily prescribed, and now the word now is they're not just for depressed people; they're for everybody.
Let me present an argument to you, Steve. You have given me credit for not using the gateway theory with marijuana argument.
Right.
And in fact, I've heard you tell audiences, don't raise that issue. Bob didn't raise it. Right. He doesn't believe it. And I don't. You're right. I guess you are trying to use the same burden of proof with SSRIs as the people who use the gateway theory. The gateway theory is people used marijuana before they used heroin. Therefore, marijuana use caused heroin.
Okay.
You and I both agree that's not necessarily true. Because the argument is they drank milk before they used heroin. Did the milk cause it?
Right.
You're saying people used SSRIs before they went out and shut schools up. Therefore, the SSRIs caused the shooting. And what I'm saying to you is that may or may not be true. I think the jury is out. That has not been proven, number one. Number two, many of the people that were prescribed SSRIs were sick individuals before they ever used.
You're already dealing with a contaminated sample.
So all I'm asking you, Steve,
of people with issues.
Absolutely. What I'm saying to you is be careful with your burden of proof that you wouldn't accept from me, and now you're using yourself.
I'm not trying to establish this quid pro quo. This is what I'm saying. 6 to 10% of the people that take SSRIs exhibit some form of mania. When a person goes manic, they can stop sleeping. After a couple of days of not sleeping, they go into a paranoid psychosis. This is very common for people that don't sleep. You can put people through sleep deprivation.
Steve,
what I'm saying is, SSRIs in 6 to 10% of people causes the mania. Now, what happens after that is a whole bunch of things. But you can go on a website now where people collect this news stories about it, antidepressants. There's 3,400 news stories.
Steve, collecting news stories is not scientific evidence. You know that.
We now have 52 cases of shootings in America where the people were on antidepressants.
And there are 100% of the heroin addicts who are on marijuana first.
Okay.
I do not make those ties.
Okay.
And you've congratulated me for not making them.
All right, but I think in this case, the fact that pharmaceutical companies had to do so many studies to find a favorable study, and even the favorable studies aren't that favorable. But it seems clear to me that they knew about this mania problem, and they just decided to move on ahead and sell all this.
You may be right. I hate it when you stand up there and at our debates and in effect make me try to defend the pharmaceutical companies because
No,
you know how much I dislike
I'm not trying to make
them.
you defend them. You don't have to defend them. You say what you want.
Right.
I'm not bending you.
Right.
And I'm just saying our healthcare system is in trouble, and this is just one of the signals. This rampant overprescription of these mind-altering substances, and the fact that the fallout really isn't being addressed like it should be. It should be a bigger talked about issue.
We agree on that.